All right. Thanks for joining us for the second episode of Spoken from the Underground. So after we completed the first episode, I was thinking about what I wanted to cover for the next episode. And my sister contacted me and told me that her best friend's dad committed suicide. And she was really shocked because he was like a staple to a lot of people. He was a strong person for not only his friends, but a lot of his daughter's different friends looked at him like a second dad kind of thing. And everybody was shocked that he was gone all of a sudden. That got me to thinking about my cousin, Ryan, who was like my brother. I was pretty close to, and a couple years ago, he also killed himself. He hung himself. I started thinking that I wanted to cover the topic of hopelessness because it's something that touches a lot of lives and it's kind of a taboo subject. It's an important one. So I came to the team here, and not going to say any names, but everybody but one person was down with it. One of the guys wanted to wait a little bit to cover the subject. So I agreed and said, okay, we'll wait. Literally the next day, I got a call saying one of my friends who I've known since I was 8 years old just hung himself. And at that point, I was sitting there thinking, okay, now my friend Nathan is gone. This seems to be a very serious problem, and we really should address it. So I came back to my team and said, we need to address this now. And everybody agreed that we should do it. And that was the beginning of a long list of technical difficulties, problems, all sorts of issues to get this episode made, ladies and gentlemen. Including yesterday. We filmed this episode yesterday. 3 hours long yesterday.
Yeah.
And only to find out at the very end that there was a problem with the recording. It could not be used. So 3 hours of covering this topic extensively yesterday, out the window, gone. So again, having to dig and really fight to do this and cover this topic for some reason. What kind of difficulties have you had in getting this episode started?
My computer just died yesterday, so...
Toast.
Yeah, the hard drive is toast.
Things like that have been happening, and little life situations coming up to try and kind of like derail us from apparently even touching this topic. More than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times we've had to consciously make the choice, the effort to, we have to do this. We have to make this.
Yeah.
It's like something is trying to stop us from making it, and we have to keep fighting to get it done. And even this morning and getting this ready, there was technical difficulties that were very strange, that just come out of nowhere. So here we are, we're covering it, we're all good, and here we go. Hopelessness is the topic for today. We're each going to speak on it. It's going to be like a round table discussion so we can stay on topic since it's such an important one. And I wanted to open up today and begin talking about it by bringing up distractions. It appears to be a very big contributing factor to the isolation of people, and particularly those in need. They're not being seen by those who could help them because they're too distracted. Whether it's technology or work or money, there's always something keeping people distracted. Part of the problem with that, social media, for example, people will go at great lengths to make it appear as though everything is well, because they don't want to be perceived as weak or with something wrong with them on social media, so they don't show anything wrong. It's really hard to catch a hint when you're so distracted. And then on top of that, with social media, it's like people are hiding what's really going on. Even if they make little subtle requests for help, they're not picked up on by anybody because people are too distracted. We got to start taking a look at how distracted we are. How much time am I putting into this? Am I walking around with this device in my hand all the time? Is it with me at the dinner table? Do I have to take it in the bathroom with me? How invested are we in other things that maybe is detrimental to those around us and to ourselves? It's an honest question to ask. So I wanted to start with distractions. Next thing I wanted to bring up is a graphic that I made, and it's to outline the fact that there's layers to hopelessness, that generally I feel like people bunch everything together into one feeling, like I'm either feeling good or I'm feeling bad. And there's no real in between. There's no layers to it. I'd like to suggest to folks that there are, in fact, layers to it. You would start on the top with stable, and then when you start moving down, you move to concerned, and then there's depressed, and then the bottom two, which is the most important to me, is hopeless and suicidal. Recognize that there's different layers and there's different things to this, that they might start to be able to gauge where they are on that scale, so they're not neglecting their responsibility as self-preservation. I also want to speak on the difference between the bottom two categories, hopelessness and suicidal. A lot of people will sit around while they're in the hopeless category and they'll contemplate suicide and they'll think about it, and they may even mimic it or slightly enact it. The difference between somebody in the hopeless bracket and the suicidal bracket is that there's no hesitation and there's no second thought, there's no anything to a person in the suicidal bracket. They will get out of bed, they'll pick up a gun, they will load it, put it to their head and pull the trigger. And if it doesn't fire, they'll cock it back again and make it fire without hesitation. So really know where you are on the scale. Ask yourself some honest questions. Am I hopeless, or am I just depressed, or am I concerned about something? Know where exactly on the scale you are so you know what action needs to be taken. When you're in the concerned or the depressed side of things, people can still help you out. They can still reach out. They can still reach you in those states. Once you reach the hopeless state, and especially the suicidal one, not one soul on this earth can lift you out of that. It is thereby on you to fight your way out. Nobody can even inspire you to fight. Like, you have to find the reason and dig it out and do it yourself. And that's the only way out of those categories. The suicidal one is exponentially harder to get out of than the hopeless bracket. 100 times harder, because when you're in that suicidal bracket, there's no feelings, there's no thoughts aside that you're certain that your life is over and that you're going to take it into your own hands, and that's it. I hear a lot of people saying to me, there's something wrong with me because I feel this way. I feel a certain way. There's something wrong with me because I feel. The day you stop feeling, that's when there's a problem. When you are feeling something, you're still alive. You're still human. You're still good. When you stop feeling, that's when you should be concerned. That's when you move into the suicidal bracket. All those types of, can I fix this? Is there any hope at all? Is there anything? All that is just gone. So it's not something to be taken lightly. Have a support system in place for you. If you feel yourself consistently sliding down and down the scale and there's seemingly nothing you can do, you got to know when it's an emergency, when you got to reach out. Another thing I'd like to touch on is I also hear a lot of people saying that, this life is going to drag on forever. Time does not drag on forever, and it can be very short. So don't believe the illusion that this is going to keep going and going. Change does happen. There is no constant in this life but taxes and death. Everything else is fluctuating up and down. Don't buy into the illusion that everything's going to stay the same forever. That's a lie, and it's one that's designed to keep you down. Alright, so to end my talking points, I wanted to leave you guys with something called a backronym. And basically it's an acronym with a word that is already in existence. The one I want to give you is fear. It can be two things for you. Forget everything and run, or face everything and rise. There's two choices, fight or flight. If you're not going to fight, you can only run for so long before you lay down and you're out of energy and you're tired. But if you fight, you can make some progress and you can be inspired. All right, so let's pass it over to you, Lars.
Thank you for the input, Justin. And I want to give you a toolbox. Some advices that you could use. It's called resilience. You need 6 points for resilience in particular. One point is you need a carrying relationship. Just like you have your wife, it's a brick wall behind you. That's something really important. She or he supports you. You're not alone. Second is carrying friends and colleagues, real friends. And you can say you have only 5 real friends in your life. They go with you. They go through hell. If you are in trouble, they move mountains. That you could have a stable foundation. I have a kid, a daughter. I love her. I would like to see her raise up and grow, and that's a beautiful thought, I think. fourth point is you believe in God, believe in yourself. In some point, you must figure it out by yourself. What is your meaning? What you want to do to get through life? You need the fifth point. That's a working role set. When you have problems, you go to a taxi driver when you drive with them and tell them, "Oh, dude, my wife just left me. I'm so distracted. I want to fucking..." No, you can't. Go to your best friends. There you can open yourself, because taxi drivers just don't give a fuck what you think or what you are.
I've met some cool taxi drivers, man. I don't know what you're talking about.
When I was drunk some days ago, so some years ago, I told him, "Hey, I'm single and I don't know how to get a girlfriend. Maybe I'm not able to love, and what should I do?" And he was like, sure, sure.
No
dude.
problem, buddy. No problem.
Yeah.
Do you feel me? Or am I maybe gay? Or what am I? He was like, again, sure, and was driving. You must make a difference between how you open yourself to another person that doesn't hurt you. Some of my best friends, they know everything about me, what bothers me, what I fear, and
You gotta have good friends. Have to.
I have good friends. They're my family, and
The wolf pack.
a real wolf pack. So we look at each other when someone is falling in a hole. We're not alone. That brings me to the sixth point. You need to have a little toolbox with your master plans that you had, and then use them. Use them like a craftsman. You need a screwdriver. Just don't use a welding machine or a hammer. So you know what I mean.
Use the right tool for the job.
Yeah.
Yeah, use the right tool that you can rise with, that you get the job done. Get shits done, go out and just do it.
Right.
Enough from me. Now, who's next? Kyle, right?
All right. Well, thanks, Lars. That was great. I'm going to touch on this in a little bit of a different way. I was doing some research on the topic, kind of kicking around and thinking about it, and I stumbled across these findings from a group of psychologists all working together, and this is the 9 types of hopelessness that they've identified. I think that, again, going back to the graphic that Justin made, if we can understand and realize where we're at on that graphic, or we can pinpoint where we're at in these 9 different types, that's the first step into actually doing something to fix the problem. If we aren't even aware of what our problem is, we've got no chance of solving it. We have to at least have some sort of indicator to point us in the right direction, and sometimes the problem can be kind of like an iceberg, in the sense that you're on the water and you see the iceberg poking out of the water and you're like, yeah, that's the problem. And then you start to attack it, and when you get closer, you see under the water and you're like, damn, this problem's actually huge. I think that's kind of ties into what we're talking about, because if you identify a problem on top, you dig into it and you see how large it actually is, you can't get overwhelmed by that. And I think that might be a situation where maybe just put your blinders on for a minute, just to kind of get you over the hump until you can push through. Without further ado, here's the 9 types that these guys have outlined here, and we can put a link in the description of the video if anyone's interested. So the first one is alienation. It goes on to talk about, how alienated individuals believe they are somehow different. They feel like they've been cut loose. They're no longer deemed worthy of love, care, or support. In turn, they close themselves off for fear of further pain and rejection. This is on the graphic that Justin has showed. I think this is when we start to get into the depressed point. By the time you start to pull back, now you're starting into that depressed range, where you're on the teetering line of somebody else's input giving you the ability to pull out of it. I think the next one is kind of similar, but not quite, titled forsakenness. So the word forsaken refers to an experience of total abandonment that leaves individuals feeling alone in their time of greatest need. I'll give you a little biblical example here for you, Lars. I know you love it. Job in the Old Testament. He's all crumpled over, covered with sores, and he's pleading with what seems to be an indifferent God that just doesn't care. Poor Job, just one horrible thing after a horrible thing after a horrible thing kept happening to him. So I'm sure there was a point there where he felt forsaken. Interestingly enough, though, he never gave up faith. The third one is being uninspired. Feeling uninspired can be especially difficult for members of underprivileged minorities, for whom opportunities for growth and positive role models within the group may be either lacking or undervalued. In some of the communities that are at higher risks because they're minorities, even when they have what should be considered a positive role model, that role model is undervalued because he's also tarred with the same brush as the entire underprivileged community. They're more at risk in an underprivileged scenario because underprivileged people are less likely to be positive, and I think that's a tough one to deal with here in Canada, where we're pretty affluent. We don't necessarily have a super underprivileged class anywhere. Our government be sure to give money to everybody. We pay for drug addicts to use their drugs. That's the taxpayers' money that pays for that with welfare. Go team. The next one is powerlessness, and this is kind of touches on a little bit what Lars was talking about, where people need to believe that they can be the author of the story of their life. They need to believe that they can actually affect change in their surroundings, in their situation. If this need is thwarted, then one feels incapable of navigating their way towards their goals, which kind of touches on what Lars was saying in the beginning of his spot about you need to have a goal or a target for your life. If you don't have that, it's pretty tough to stay motivated. There needs to be an end game that you're working towards, or else you're just kind of tossed in the sea aimlessly. One of the things that leads to hopelessness is this powerlessness feeling where you feel like, okay, you've totally lost control. There's nothing you can do. The fifth one here is oppression. Oppression involves the subjugation of a person or group. The word oppressed comes from Latin, and it means to press down. And its synonym downtrodden suggests a sense of being crushed or flattened. So I think that comes into when you start feeling those feelings of hopelessness and despair. Well, I can't do anything. This entity is pushing down on me, or the government's holding me down, or my boss at work is oppressing me. He won't give me the promotion I deserve, and he's always talking down on me, or whatever the situation may be. That's kind of where that can now spiral into hopelessness. The next one is limitedness. That's for people that are experiencing themselves as deficient, lacking in the right stuff to make it in the world. This form of hopelessness is all too common among the poor, as well as those struggling with severe physical handicaps or crippling learning disabilities. Because in those kinds of situations, if you have a severe learning disability, you're going to feel pretty limited about what you can and can't do. That, again, is another category that it's been tied into the hopelessness. I'm just trying to make some categories so that people can understand that hopelessness isn't this gigantic one-word fits-all blanket statement. There's lots going on in there, and I think the first step to dealing with it is to understand how big it is. If we go back to my iceberg analogy, you start feeling sad and things are going a little bit bad for you, and you start feeling, oh, I'm sad, and you start digging in, and all of a sudden, boom, it's this iceberg. I think hopelessness is the same thing. Hopelessness is the tip of the iceberg, and these categories or areas that I'm describing now is everything that's underneath the water that you don't see at first glance. Number 7 is doom or survival. So individuals weighed down by this form of despair presume that their life is over, that their death is imminent. The ones most vulnerable to sinking into this particular circle of hell are those diagnosed with a severe life-threatening illness, as well as those who see themselves worn out by age or infirmity. Such individuals feel doomed, trapped in a fog of irreversible decline. This type of hopelessness is the reason for the suicides in the elderly. The end is here, it's irreversible, I'm not getting any younger, every day I'm just going to get weaker, every day I'm going to have more pain. Right now I can maybe make it to the bathroom on my own, but tomorrow I might shit myself in my bed, like, I'm done. That's the hopelessness of the doom. The last two are captivity and helplessness. Two forms of hopelessness can result from captivity. The first consists of a physical or emotional captivity enforced by an individual or a group. Prisoners fall into this category, as well as those held captive in controlling abusive relationships. We refer to this as other imprisonment. An equally insidious form of entrapment is self-imprisonment. This occurs when individuals cannot leave a bad relationship because their sense of self will not allow it. And again, if anybody here is watching, is in a relationship like this, my advice to you is to get the hell out of it as fast as you can. Run and don't come back. Because the dude or the girl, man, it happens the other way around too. You know, there are some abusive women out there that are crazy. Let's just let the record show that it's not a one-way street. It may be predominantly men that we hear about, but I think as a man myself, if my woman is beating me up and I'm afraid of her, I don't think I'm going to tell anyone. Let's get real here, right?
Because of the stereotype, you're a man, you're strong, right?
Right,
but
exactly.
Your little wife beats you up, beats the hell out of you,
right.
And what you should say to your friends? Yeah, mega beta male. Don't let it take you down, and rise up and leave.
And that touches into the next piece, self-imprisonment, where these kinds of individuals in these relationships can't leave because their sense of self will not allow it. Now, if you've gone all the way down into the place of, I can't leave him because I'll never find anybody else and I'm a loser, if those are any of the thoughts that are going through your head, you need to get out now. If you've imprisoned yourself, who is going to pull you out? If what we've been saying this entire video is that when you get to the very bottom, you're the only one that can do it. If you've imposed that limit on yourself, you'll never do it. So get out. It doesn't need to be that way. And the last one here I've got is helplessness. A helpless individual no longer believes that they can live safely in the world. They feel exposed, vulnerable, like a cat after being declawed, or a bird grounded by a broken wing. Trauma or repeated exposure to uncontrolled stressors can produce an ingrained sense of helplessness. In the words of one trauma survivor, I was terrified to go anywhere on my own. I felt so defenseless and afraid that I just stopped doing anything. So I think that right there ties into what Justin had brought up about fear. So forget everything and run. That's basically what this helplessness is doing here. So terrified, I can't go anywhere on my own. I just stopped doing anything. So just forget about everything and run into the prison of my own mind. Or you can face everything.
If you're in an abusive relationship, which requires you to flee, that doesn't mean you're forgetting everything and running.
Right.
That means you're facing everything and rising.
Right. Thank you for clarifying that so that, it doesn't sound like I'm going down the wrong road here with, oh, you're a wuss if you run from an abusive relationship. No, that's not what I'm saying.
All right, Kyle, thanks for that. Let's throw it over to Malachi.
Throughout this entire time, I've been holding back some tears because this topic of hopelessness does hit home for me. And since I'm the last speaker, I'll take it home for you guys. What I have to say actually ties all of you together. As of January 12th of this year, the population of the U.S. as a whole, of the country, is 328.5 million. Just as we closed out 2018, the suicide rate of the U.S. was 13.4% for every 100,000 people. And as we close out 2018, the numbers are still probably being calculated right now, but I actually did the calculations, and that comes out to roughly over 45,000 people who have actually killed themselves last year in the US alone. That is a very high number. It may not be as high as the rate of 2017, which was 47,000 people who actually completed suicide. But still, that is a lot for just 1 year. Just the thought of all of this happening does again hit home for me. And there are songs that raise awareness for this kind of travesty. They always bring a tear to my eye whenever I listen to them. One of those songs is by the band POD, and the song is called Youth of the Nation, which talks about or tries to bring about awareness of hopelessness among teenagers. Another song I also listen to is by the band Five Finger Death Punch. Their song is called Wrong Side of Heaven, which tries to bring awareness of the veterans and the hopelessness that they deal with after fighting for what they believe in and not feeling appreciated for all that they've done for the country that they are fighting for. The reason why we bring these topics to you is because these victims of suicide that we talk about are probably your friends, family, close friends. 3 of the 4 of us know personally of people that actually took their own lives. They could be your brother, your sister, your son, your daughter, your mother, your own father. I mean, they could be someone very close, and they could be just walking around you and you have no idea that they are actually contemplating of taking their own lives. The top reason, according to psychologists, is because of depression. And according to Justin's graphic, depression is only the middle. It's not even the beginning, it's not even the end of why someone would take their own lives. Depression is just an umbrella of the underlying causes of what people are actually feeling. Some of the top reasons that people would feel that depression is because they feel unappreciated, or they feel like they're an outcast, they've been picked on, singled out, and ridiculed. They feel unloved, alone, even when they are around people, even when they're probably around you, they feel like they are alone. Not lonely, but alone. There is a difference between those 2 words. Another reason why they will feel depressed is because they might feel that nobody ever cares. Even though they do so much for people, they just feel like that no one really cares for them. The reason why I say these are the top reasons is because I have actually felt them myself. Personal experience of hopelessness. Now, as a disclaimer, I don't like talking about my life, let alone my past. But I feel that they are important for you to know that you are not the only ones who have been experiencing hopelessness. Because I don't tell about myself, just consider yourself privileged. And there's a reason why these memories of mine, I repress them, because I don't like feeling what I felt like in the past. One of my experiences was when I was 9 years old, and I even contemplated suicide. I was one of those kids who got picked on, who did get singled out, which is why I can intimately say that that is one of the reasons why that causes depression. It causes a person to feel alone, because I felt alone, especially at school. All the kids did laugh at me. I was emotionally bullied. I would come home from school. There are times I just did not do things that I was supposed to, that my mom, single mom, a black single mom. So a black single mom in the U.S., they don't play. She was a strong mother, but she punished me and disciplined me for the things I did wrong. And she would say things like, I did this because I love you. But as a 9-year-old, all you know is that if you hit someone, it's not because you love them. It's not because you like them. It's because you hate them. And it did not resonate to me. If my mom loved me, why would she hit me? And because I felt that way, I felt like my mom really did not like me at all. And with people at school, combined with my thought of my mother's hatred for me, I felt like that there was no reason for me to even exist in this world. I just remember one day I came home from school and I just dropped my backpack and I went to the kitchen and I just thought I needed to just take my own life because there was no reason for me to exist. So going to the kitchen, I sought out the biggest knife I could find, and I was able to find a knife just like this. I remember standing in the middle of the kitchen, had the knife pointed at my stomach just like this, and I was preparing myself to take my own life. As I stood there, the only reason why I did not follow through was because there was a voice telling me, don't do it. And I was trying to fight that voice, giving all the reasons why I should do it. Because again, nobody liked me. I didn't see a reason for me to continue living. Eventually, I caved in, dropped the knife, and just fell to the floor, just crying, because I did not know what else. But that was one of my earliest experiences of hopelessness. Another moment that I've had of hopelessness was in my college days. During that time, I was an introvert, I was also a broke college student. I was struggling. I lived my days drowning in ramen noodles. I had to go to Walmart just to get those 10-cent ramen noodles. Got me through college, so I hate ramen noodles right now. But during that time, I was alone, and it got to the point where one day I just could not take it anymore, and I needed to just leave my environment. I played hooky. I went to my hometown just to be able to reminisce my past, trying to make myself happy again. In a sense, it worked because I did have a good time just going through my hometown, remembering the things that I did. It came time where I had to drive back to school. Taking the interstate, being a college guy, I did have a lead foot. I was doing 90 in a 75, and I got pulled over. That's when the weight of all the pressure that I tried to leave came back to me. It just came back to me. I now have a ticket that I now have to pay for. Didn't know how I was going to pay it. I just remember trying to find the hardest thing in my car that I could find. And when I found that, I started pounding myself in the head. I didn't care. I just wanted a way to just leave it all. Cop came to my window. When I rolled it down, I just continued hitting myself in the head. And it got to the point where he told me to just stop. Then he asked me, what's wrong? And instead of telling him my problems, I told him what I wanted, which was looking him dead in the eye, telling him that all I wanted him to do was to take his gun out, point it in my head, and just shoot me square in the eyes. After that, I just started bawling. He actually walked me to his squad car. After that, I don't remember much other than him calling in probably for an ambulance and just labeling me as a potential suicide victim. I just remember an ambulance pulling up, being escorted into the ambulance. But then right after that, I woke up in a bed that turned out to be a mental hospital. After waking up in that mental hospital and actually looking around, it's a whole total experience, completely different experience to truly be surrounded by people with true problems. I mean, we're talking serious mental disorders. I remember this one person who had dissociative personality disorder, people with real problems, and it was an eye-opener for me. It just told me that if I really did not get my act together, if I did not get myself together, then I would truly be one of their actual patients. And I knew I did not want that to happen to me. I had to spend an entire weekend in that hospital. Fast forward to today, I can somewhat consider myself still a potential suicide victim. However, my thoughts of suicide is not as strong and it's not as tempting as it was, I can say, 6 months ago. Justin, like you're telling us about your sister's best friend's dad taking his own life, even though he was the one who was the glue for everyone. He was the foundation. He was the cornerstone. He was the strong one. I have a good idea of why he would do what he did.
The strong people need help, too. The strong people need to get checked up on as well.
Right.
Everybody just assumes that they're infinitely strong and therefore never need to be checked up on. Completely incorrect. The strong ones actually need to be checked up on the most sometimes because they're so busy giving themselves away to everybody to try and help them. They run on empty pretty quick. Folks, check on the strong people in your lives. They need you.
They maybe have a strong shell, but they're too soft in the core.
The weight of your struggle can also bring them down because they
right.
so much before it starts sucking them under.
Right.
I just got to touch on real quick too, since you said that, Malachi, it mirrors exactly my story, only I was a little bit younger than you. I was 12, 13. I went back and forth with my mom and my dad when I was a kid growing up. One of these instances got really bad at my dad's. I started feeling really suicidal because I had gone back and forth so many times. Nothing seems to be going well. I feel neglected. I feel alone. I feel abandoned. I want to die. That was my mindset.
Yep.
So my teachers at my school started noticing a change in my behavior. She outright asked me, "Are you suicidal?" I just said, "Yep." Wasn't going to lie to her. And next thing I knew, I was on my way to a hospital getting locked up. And just like you said, I immediately seen real problems. Real problems. I walked in there and there was a guy going ballistic, throwing furniture around in his room, and like 20 people trying to get him out of his room. That first night I was in there, to cope with being in there, I wrote with a black marker all over my forearm, just different things. And this chick walked up to me and she grabbed my arm and she looked at me and she goes, the moon and the sun is coming up inside of the universe. If they're going to come get you, they're coming to get you. And she's reading my arm like that. It's not what I wrote in my arm, but she was reading something. And I was just like, wow, just like you said, this is real crazy and I don't belong here and I don't ever want to be here again.
I have been the strong one. My mom called me her cornerstone. One of my aunts actually called me the foundation of the family. And I also have friends who come to me just to release what they go through. But I always felt like what Justin said about the dad. I always felt I kept giving myself to people. And I felt that nobody cared enough to help me out. But that was just my own perspective and my own way of thinking. With me constantly giving, I wasn't receiving, and I was off balance. And that's what caused me to get that feeling of hopelessness and brought me into the depression phase. And I wanted to kill myself. And that was 6 months ago. It took my own strength to step out of where I was, look at myself from the third person perspective, and just get an overview of what I was going through and find my own strength to seek out help. I am seeing a therapist. She has helped me greatly out of the hopelessness phase, out of the depression phase. And I can say that I am more in the concerned phase, going up the ladder. Not quite stable yet, but I can feel myself getting very close to that level. I feel good. She makes our sessions very fun. I trust her with the things that I tell her with my own personal life. We laugh all the time. It just brings me to what I remember seeing in this movie called Into the Wild. The main character wrote in this book, happiness only real when shared. When I read that, I just thought to myself that is so true. With me seeing the therapist and sharing my happiness with her, I am now so happy that I can actually share it with everyone who meets me, who talks with me, who just is a passerby. Because before then, I was actually bringing everybody down. All people want is to feel appreciated, whether it's just making them laugh, just giving them a compliment, or just hearing them out. They just want to feel as though that they count. With all that I was dealing with, I did have, the suicidal thoughts that I was, that kept rummaging through my head. If I did complete suicide, that I would truly be giving up. I have a wife. I am about to become a father. Just the idea of, one, giving up and abandoning my wife when she is going to deliver my child, and then two, having a baby girl. The idea of having a baby girl who would think that her father is a coward because he could not handle life, that did not resonate well with me. What I needed was some kind of motivation, more motivation, just to keep my reason to continue on and fight this good fight. There are songs of inspiration to actually help motivate that and just keep those thoughts in your mind. One of my songs that I absolutely love, Keep On Moving, and that's a song that ILP, us, did. It's very inspirational for me because it just pumps me up for me to keep striving and fight that good fight. I want you to feel that same motivation that I feel. I want you to hear Keep On Moving by us.
We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving.
We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving. We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving. We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving.
It's been hard from the start, raised in the dark, ashes to ashes, I've been pulled apart. Through the pain we grow, ebb and flow. Please reach for the stars or you'll sink below. We're in this thing together, but we separate. One attacks and another one retaliates. But pride arise before the fall. Again and again, we've seen it all. We seem to only rise up to get eliminated, hated, targeted, labeled, segregated. And it's like it'll never change, never fade. These times are strange, mistakes are made. Some learn, some don't. Rise up above, some will, some won't. But we'll keep on keeping on. You know the words to the song, now sing along.
We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving. We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving.
I'm feeling high, y'all. Yo, I'm high as a bird. View from the skies on top of the world, It gets no better than this. Feeling tight, everything I write's crisp, like a taste of crisp. When you at the club spending, tonight, yo, there's no pretending. It kinda feels like the honeymoon stage of new relations. The first time you step off the plane on vacation, like when you wrote your first rhyme, or when you had your very first Bacardi and lime, My first time seeing my seed. Healthy girl, new life indeed, Don't overlook what you got under your feet. Take a minute and breathe what you can't see. I gotta say that I'm loving this life. I got an appetite, I had to grab a knife and take a slice,
We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving. We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving.
I guess I walk to the beat of my own drum. I won't run no matter the outcome. You're outgunned, everybody in on it, they out for me. So I keep on moving like a shark at sea. I'm out to eat, I live a good life all around. Kinda settle down, I ain't gotta run now, I run this town. My whole fam, we stay airtight. We keep it fresh in this world, there's no fair fights. No time to rest and I put it on my mama that I'm down to ride. On my soul down low, where the sound reside. Love found inside, beating bound and tied. Trying to keep both feet on the ground and stride. I'm living the night like the sun will never rise. I'm fighting the fight like the one who never dies. I'm lighting the light so bright forever shines. I'm putting it on my life so many times.
All right.
We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving. We'll keep on moving, just beating our drum. We don't have to run, 'cause we'll keep on moving.
Well, I hope you guys do like that song because, again, I really like Keep On Moving, especially with that second verse when he said, new life indeed. I now understand, Kurt. Thank you for saying that because I am waiting for that to happen to me.
And I got two baby girls, so I know exactly what that's like. We really appreciate everybody taking a look at this extensive video. Just trying to give you guys as much content that's as rich and deep as we can. There's a lot of replay value in it, so thanks everybody for tuning in. We'd really appreciate it if you guys could subscribe to our channel and like the video and share it with anybody that you know might be suffering with hopelessness or depression, or someone who's concerned and can't figure out what's going on. Some people are just waiting for just a very simple, you can do it. You can do it. Some people are just waiting to hear that. Just that in itself is enough for them to get going. Never assume that just a little encouragement will fall on deaf ears, because sometimes it goes a very long way.
Don't forget, comment below if you want, and I promise you that if you put a comment in there and you're looking for somebody to talk, I will respond. We want this video to elicit a response in people. That was the whole purpose of doing it, and man, we fought tooth and nail.
The first video that we did, without a hitch, no problem, nothing. We decided, well, let's do one on hopelessness and try and help some people and try and speak to some people. One problem after another, right up to today, constantly. We really had to dig deep to make this happen. So, like we're telling you in this video, we had to make a choice. Do we fight back and do it again tomorrow, even though we just poured all this energy out into it? Or do we just wipe our hands and go, well, I guess we're not doing the video, and all go our separate ways? We chose the first, to fight back. Hopefully it can inspire you as well to fight back, even when you just keep getting that 1-2 to the chin. Bite down and move forward. Well, I'd like to thank all you gentlemen for coming again and making this happen, despite all the errors and troubles doing it. And for everybody else who wants to know when the next one's coming out, that'll be in 2 weeks from the day this is released. The next subject for the next episode will be our origins of how we got into music production. See you next time.